Yo, 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 everybody. What is up? Welcome back to another episode of the What Now podcast. We got Spencer and Zach back on your favorite Dolocast. What's up, Zach?
What it do? What it do? Boo boo.
Man, I'm good. What's up with you? Give everybody a little life update. Let's do those.
Okay. A little life update. Almost 6 months married, so going strong there. Still got a new puppy that is learning that he likes to chew on things. He actually chewed up part of our rug in our living room yesterday, so
That's no fun.
that's no fun. But we've been wanting some vinyl flooring in the house, so he said I'll take care of that. We weren't necessarily prepared for that, but whatever. So that's been fun. And then I'm making some moves in the office to optimize and really set us up for success this month, next month, and more importantly, 2025 and beyond.
Nice.
What about you?
Dude, we're good. Kate and I have been traveling a lot. We were obviously Cairo Wealth Con, and shout out to Bailey who came up to us and said that she listens to our episodes. We really appreciate that. That's really cool. We never thought that we would be podcast guys, but here we are. So traveling that, and then Kate just went to Taylor Swift, which I guess is or is not impressive if you're a Swiftie. And then yeah, dude, 6 months married.
Her version.
Dude, that was awesome. Still legendary moment in my life by Joe Rogan. Yeah, and then house is good. For those of you guys who don't know, Zach and I actually live in the exact same house. Like not in the same physical location, but we have the exact same floor plan unintentionally. It was like the wildest thing.
Yeah, it was very. So Spencer, when he told me he put the offer in, he sent me like the Zillow or whatever of the house, and I start going through the pictures, and it's like I'm like looking through, and I'm like, this looks familiar. I can't really pinpoint why. And then had me over when they got in, and he's like, I'll give you the tour. And I'm like, I'm good.
I think I'm good.
I got an idea. Probably bedroom to the left, living room top right corner of the house. Yeah, I got it.
It is so funny. But yeah, so we live in the exact same floor plan, which is just so funny.
Very
anyway,
bizarre.
What are we going to get into today, Zach?
Floor plans. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Which would be a good conversation eventually.
Yeah, we're about to move offices actually. So
Nice.
We can actually go over that and talk about that.
Nice.
Once we go through it.
Nice. Today we're going to be talking about time blocking and how we're setting up our schedule for success, and really how to. And I actually talked about this with my team yesterday. But what we're doing, what we're taking away, what we're adding in to be as specific as possible to really achieve our goals with our schedule.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many like time blocking, productivity things that we can get into, but I think I kind of really want to get into and talk about like more specifically. I mean, really a lot of concepts that Steph talks about, but like your ideal day and how to set that up, and then how to figure out when and where you're wasting time. One of the things that the reason I brought up to Zach, hey, we should talk about time blocking today, is because that's been like just a general theme in my life recently. Steph has been talking about it. Austin Cohen I was just listening to. He just talked about it on a podcast, and then Jared was talking about it. And then some people were just also asking me like, hey, how do you fit all this into your schedule? Like, what do you do for your time? All of those kind of things. But then I also started realizing that I kept saying, or like me and Kate in conversation would just be saying like, oh yeah, we just don't have time for that. And that usually is an indicator of I'm either wasting my time or that I need to re-audit my time that I'm spending, because time is the great equalizer. All time is the same across the board, whether you make $100 a month, whether you make $100 million a month, time is the great equalizer. And so whenever I catch myself saying like, oh, I just don't have enough time for that, or I wish I just had more time, or oh, I couldn't fit this in, what I'm really saying to a lot of those things is that's not a priority versus I don't have enough time, because everybody has the same amount of time.
And I think, just kind of diving into that is when you say like you don't have time for something, and you're right, it's definitely showing that it's not a priority for you. But I think it's also important to notice, what are you saying you don't have time for, right? Are you saying you don't have time for, maybe a happy hour with your friends on a Wednesday night? Okay, maybe that's not a priority, right? If you're an entrepreneur, not that can't be a priority, especially early on, but it's probably not a priority for you. But if you're saying things like, oh, I don't have the time for this new marketing stream, or for this event that's coming up, or to train my team, or, to do a weekly meeting, I don't have time for that. that might be when it's really time to start auditing, especially early on. I know a lot of our listeners, y'all are, you're in the thick of it. You're in that 1 to 3 years of owning your practice, and so really noticing and not just auditing your time, but more so auditing what are you saying you don't have time for is, I
Mhm.
think, super super important.
Yeah, right. I mean, you got to think, okay, if I only have 24 hours in this day, right? Where am I? Or if I only have 24 hours, you can also think of it like, I mean, I guess kind of like fantasy football, but like if any of you guys have done like an auction draft, basically what it is instead of like picking a player, you only have like, say, like $1,000 and like, one really good player will cost you $600, or some kind of mediocre players will cost you $200. And so then kind of thinking about your time like that, like, okay, I have $24, and what am I going to spend my money on, right? Like if 8 hours of sleep cost me $8, right?
Mhm.
Is that super important to me, right? If the gym is going to cost me one of my $24, right? 1 hour of my day, right? Is that a priority? Because where you spend your time is where you're going to basically place your value, right?
Yeah,
Show, like, I forget what it is, but it's like, show me what you're spending your time on, and I'll show you where you're spending your, like, what's really valuable to you. So if you're spending a lot of time on Netflix, right, then maybe that's the case. But so I mean, that's really like a big thing. It's like, hey, like, do you want to do a screening? For me, right, I would say, oh, I don't have time for that. But really, what I'm also saying at the same time is that, screenings at this point are not a priority to me, which they're not.
right.
Hey, like, have you been working on your patch campaigns? Right? Oh, I don't have time for that. Oh, that hasn't been a priority for me.
Yeah,
Right? And
yeah.
so that's kind
And
of where we're
I
leaning.
think too, like doing, I think Spencer and I have talked about, the challenge we used to give to the members that we trained with in KTC, once a try or every other try, we'd challenge them to go a week without complaining about anything. And that was, I mean, chiropractic students, whether you're in chiropractic school now or you're out of chiropractic school, we freaking love to complain. I almost dropped an F bomb. And it's really toxic, at least at Parker. I don't know about other schools, but it's complaining about professors. It's complaining about this test. Oh, I have so many tests going on. It's like, it's a privilege. All of that's equaling your degree. It's equaling the ability to lay your hands on people. Like, why are you complaining about that? Get out of that victim mindset. But I think too, like a challenge, and I'm going to take this up for myself over the next like maybe 2 or 3 weeks. But rather than saying, "Oh, I don't have time for that," whether you're saying that to a person or to a task, just say out loud or in your head, like, "Oh, I don't. That's not a priority to me."
Hmm.
And really start to notice, like, man, what is a priority to me? Is it sleep, Netflix, social media? Because probably making time for that, going out with friends, sleeping in, whatever it might be. And so I think that's going to be a challenge I'm going to take up with myself. And if you're listening, whether you're listening tomorrow, so October, or you're listening in 2 years from now, just send me a message and be like, hey, I'm going to try this challenge out. Let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear how that challenge goes for you and what you uncover by yourself.
Yeah, because I mean, it'll quickly change your perspective on what you're actually spending your time on. Because if somebody says, "Hey, did you and your wife or did you and your spouse go on a date night this week?" and you say, "Oh, we didn't have time for that," right? Nobody would say like, "Date night with my spouse wasn't priority this week." Right. And, certain things take priority over others, but everyone has the same amount of time. Right. The only difference, like if Zach and Morgan go on a date night and me and Kate don't, and I say, "Oh, Zach, I didn't have enough time for that," all that means is that Zach and Morgan prioritized that date night more than Kate and I did. And, give you a ton of perspective. Hey, did you go to the gym today? No, I didn't have time for that. So then, man, hey, I wasn't a priority. Hey, did you meal prep this week? No, I didn't have time for meal prep. Okay, it wasn't a priority.
And I
So,
think too, like I think there's also balance with that. Like, oh, I didn't have time for that, or it wasn't a priority for me because I didn't go to the gym this morning because last night I was working on this campaign or this SOP manual until midnight, and a priority for me is at least 6 hours of sleep, and then I had to get my day going. Even then, 12 to 6 is 6 hours. You could still probably get a workout in, but I think you get the point I'm trying to make.
yeah, I mean, it's not a thing to say like, oh, you don't care about your fitness or you don't care about your spouse. What it is it's saying that, sometimes in life there are things that take priority over others, but it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that we don't have time for it, right? It doesn't mean that it's not possible for you or you're, quote, too busy to do those things. It just means that, hey, there are other things that are taking priority. Like we have parents all the time that are like, hey, I don't have time to work out because I'm running my kids all over the place. And I'm just, and I say, hey, listen, look, I totally understand. You are living a super busy life and your kids are a priority to you. And I just affirm that to them. They're like, yeah, my kids are a priority. So like it's a good thing that there's so many parents that wish that they could even have kids to have to run around, right? And so, like, let's be grateful for this time in our life that, our kids are super
Mhm.
busy and be grateful that you're in good enough health to actually be able to show up to all their things. Like, hey, dude, I don't have time to blah, blah, blah because I'm studying for boards. Dude, let's just be grateful that you're at the point in school where you're taking boards because there was a period in time where boards were at least a year away from you, right? When you knock out that first boards exam, like that first boards exam is the first step to you getting your license, right? Let's just say, hey, man, I'm super grateful to be able to take boards this weekend and I'm going to crush them and I'm going to knock them out. And then what that's going to do is boards is going to come off of my priority list and I can put something back on top of that, right?
Yep.
So,
I think it's very similar to financial conversations too. Like where you spend your money is, where you
100%.
where you show your priority. And I think, with that, like just that same mindset of like, oh, I got boards coming up, or, for us as a practice, we had, I think I talked about that Oktoberfest that we just did. Like that was a big priority. That took up a lot of bandwidth, but now it's gone, and now it's like the trickle effect that freed up a lot of time for us. But it's the same with like credit card debt, student loan debt, whatever it might be. It's like, like I'm just swamped in this credit card debt. Okay, well then make it a priority, pay it off. I just don't want to. And I'm saying this like this was a very real conversation I've had to have with myself multiple times, both personal and business wise. And so like it's procrastination at its finest, but it's what's a priority to you. Is being out of debt a priority? Then you know put your money where your mouth is, literally.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing. Your P&L, and so basically what we're about to get into in the next couple minutes is kind of how to make a time audit, which is similar to a P&L for your time. Because in life you're always trading one of two things. You're either trading your time or you're trading your money. Because when you're first starting out, you're saying like, "Hey, I don't have the money, but I have the time to answer my own phone calls. When people come in, nobody's in the office, so I can answer my own phone calls." So
Hmm.
you're trading your time taking that phone call instead of your money. When you then get your schedule gets more full with patient care, then you say, "Hey, now I don't have the time," right? Or really, what you're going to say is, my patient care and adjusting people in the office is now a higher priority than answering the phones. And now I have more money, so I will hire someone and trade my money instead of my time to take care of this priority, which is answering the phones. So you can see where your priorities are based off of your P&L and what you're spending your money on, but also where you're spending your time. And so this is something that I always go through our P&L after each month and see, where do we spend our money at? And then I noticed, I was like, oh man, like we're not getting as many leads as we would like. And so I said, okay, let me go look at the P&L and see how much I'm spending on marketing. And I was like, well, dude, I'm really not spending much on marketing, so I can't really complain on me not getting enough leads. So I said, okay, let's go up our spend because like, yeah, I'm not really putting a lot of energy, right? The energy comes in either the form of time or money. And so anyway, that's kind of what it is. Like on my P&L, you won't ever see my personal and business. You won't ever see my student loans because I pay for the student loan tutors to, not student loan tutor. Yeah, student loan tutor. We pay for them. We trade our money for their time and they set up our stuff to where our student loans are, if you know about student loan tutor, you know about student loan tutor. But our loans are not a priority for us right now. And some people are like, dude, I got to pay off the student loan. I got to pay these off. And that's a different priority for them.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, we don't have to get into student loans because yeah. So there's financial, and then there's private, and all of that.
Cut that out. Cut that out.
So Spence, what are you doing, or what have you done to set up specific time blocks in your life?
Yeah, so I have this sheet just called time audit or ideal schedule or weekly rhythm. I kind of call it different things, but it's all the same. But what it is an Excel sheet that it just has Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the
Hmm.
top row. And on the bottom row on the Y axis, it just has 5 o'clock, 5:15, 5:30, 5:45. And so it starts at 5 a.m. and it's a 15-minute increment all the way down to, I think, 10 p.m. And what I do is then I just go and I say, okay, I'm going to spend this much time, this 15-minute block doing this. And, so like on the podcast, like I have it color coded. So I have 4 blocks, 1 hour dedicated. It says podcast recording, and I never miss. I have a really big block that just says doctor's hours, where I'm the doctor at Empower Chiropractic. And then I do that. On Fridays, I have another 4 hour block that says CEO time. And that's
Mhm.
where I do those kind of things. We have another block. So anyway, yeah, I basically, just like I would say, like, okay, I have $1,000, and how am I going to budget that? 500 is going to go to rent, 500 is going to go to do that, this and this and this. I basically just say, okay, I have all these 15-minute blocks throughout the whole week, and where I'm going to spend it and what I'm going to do that. And then I try to adhere to that schedule as best as possible. That's the biggest thing, is actually sticking to the schedule. I mean, a budget is great, but if you don't stick to your budget, then you're doing it for nothing. And
Mhm.
so I think it's the same thing with your time budget or your time audit, or the rhythm that you set up for your life, is like you got to actually stick to it. And then what I do to kind of automate those things, because I don't want to have to like look and see like, oh, what am I doing there? Is I just go and I create that same schedule in my Apple Calendar,
Nice.
to where then I get notifications on my phone and my computer saying like, hey, at this time you're supposed to be doing this. At this time you're supposed to be doing that. To where then if I go on Instagram and I'm on Instagram doom scrolling or something like that, and it goes bing, time to go to bed, then I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah. That's great. That's really good. And I mean, when you first did that, like, what were some of the things that you noticed, whether it was like on your phone too late or those type of things, that once you started auditing your time, you really had big revelations about?
Well, dude, like you look at it, and I think I have at least 2 hours every single day that I don't have anything scheduled. It's just white. And so
Mm.
that's why I color code the thing, is because when you color code it, you're going to really be able to see kind of in proportion, just like at a glance, what you're
Mhm.
spending the most time on. And like on Sundays, I have 2 things on my schedule on Sundays. One is church. The second is meal prep or in groceries.
Not basketball
And
anymore.
dude, actually, basketball was on there, and now my ankle is cooked. But basketball's still on there because it's still a priority to me. So it's
Yeah.
my goal to get back and play basketball. Yeah, and that was the thing. And then, like, when I started doing that, I never missed a week of basketball. Before I put basketball on my calendar, I would kind of go like every other week or something like that. And then I was like, nah, I want to really start showing up. So I put it on my schedule.
Mhm. That's really good.
What about you? How do you have yours set up?
So and this is a fault of mine. I am really good at keeping my calendar in my head. And as things have gotten busier and more priorities have come up, I've had to learn the Google Calendar. So Morgan and I share a Google Calendar. We do our best to like have one family calendar, if you will. So like especially during like lunch breaks or after shifts, we always like to connect with each other, whether it's for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just to see how each other are doing. But if I go on the Google Calendar and I see that she's in a meeting, I'm not going to give her a call, and vice versa. And so we check in every Sunday night or Sunday, like we talk about what our week looks like, what are the big things coming up. So really try to be on the same page there. That way we're able to make those decisions together, and really, like this past Saturday, like completely forgot. Uh, and Morgan, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but 1 year old birthday party was on her calendar, didn't pop up on the family calendar. And so Spencer and I were going to do some work together, and we're just going to jam out. And then we had to pivot because the birthday started at 11. So I was like, all right, I'll be at your house at 7:30. Uh, and we still got it done. But we really tried our best to, keep events on that Google Calendar. My goal this week, inspired from this podcast, is to kind of make, not kind of, but to make my Excel spreadsheet of my week and really keep track, especially during lunch hours. I feel like that's, as chiropractors, where we can make up a lot of time or lose a lot of time. And what I mean by that is like that 12 to 3 when you're not seeing patients, like what are you doing in that time? I know some practice management groups are really big on like that should be a time of rest. And I agree with that, pending what season you're in, and pending what the rest of your week. I don't think every day needs to be, 3 hours of rest personally. So that's a big thing, I guess. I don't know if that answered the question at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. Okay, so transparently, here's a little update for you guys. Zach and I really have been getting a lot of requests of like, hey, can you know that thing that you talked about? Can you send that over? Hey, like the stat sheet that you guys have.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this time template thing that you have. So this weekend, what we were trying to jam out on is like kind of how can we develop the podcast more for you guys. And so I just built a website. It's not live yet, but we're my goal is to start uploading like all these things. So like I'll just have a blank Excel template for you guys to download eventually,
Mhm.
on the website. And so it's not live yet, but that's kind of some things to come. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I mean, dude, it's all these like little small things that like really help you optimize, right? And I think that's like what Steph is just saying, like in these seasons where, because right, like you saying, like sometimes we're in a push season, sometimes we're in a rest season, sometimes we're in a maintenance season. And our time should be reflecting that, right? If you're saying, hey, I'm trying to slow down and I'm
Mhm.
trying to rest, but you're booking networking meetings, 3 of them on Fridays,
Mhm.
and you're filling up all of your free time with meetings, you're not resting, and that's why you feel burnout. And it's the same way if you're saying, "Man, I really wanna grow,"
Yeah.
and you're, "Man, I really wanna grow the practice," and you're going every night to play pickleball, or, "Hey, I really wanna get better at adjusting," and on the times that, school is out, you're not going to seminars and you're going to
Mhm.
Cabo,
Yeah.
right? You're not getting better at adjusting. So it just means that your actions are out of alignment with your priorities.
Mhm.
And so that's why you're staying stagnant, right? And so what I do is every time I feel like I'm saying to myself, man, I just don't have time for this. I just don't have time for that. It's time to go back and look at the time audit and say,
Mhm.
where am I spending my time? Am I
Yeah.
doing things that's not super efficient and not? So
Yeah, I think one thing, I was talking with Steph and Nikki about this, but just like how important like self-realization, like kind of like revisiting that mirror. And I know we've talked about it a lot, but just having those very real conversations with yourself. And if what you're wanting, whether it be, more rest, time with family, or to grow the practice, like really auditing yourself and like whether or not your actions, your time, your financials are equating growth and building up. Uh, yeah.
yeah, a ton of it. I mean, like time and money are really, that's why they say like time is money. Like, or, they're really both the same because they're just different forms of energy. And, but the thing is like one of them, time is, well, actually, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to put that in those people's minds. But anyway, you are the source of both of those things, right? You create your own time, you create your own amount of money, right? Where it goes is dependent on your priorities. And so, if you're saying, hey, like the office just isn't growing, and like one of the biggest things is like I wanted to prioritize my relationship with Kate, us go on date nights, especially while we don't have kids. But we were working until 5 o'clock on Friday nights, and we were too tired, and we were too all of these things.
Yeah.
Like date nights weren't a priority. So you know what we did?
And
We
if you,
closed down the office
if you did go on date night, it was like probably to, at
to
least for
Panda
us,
Express.
yeah, like some like Tex-Mex restaurant, like super quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right? And so, yeah, now on Fridays we prioritize we get breakfast or coffee, most Fridays if we can adhere to our schedule, and then we do those things. And it's the same thing, like you'll when you're in your patient care hours, like for us from 10 to 1 and 3 to 6, I'm not scheduling anything else. I'm not doing any meetings. I'm not doing any bookkeeping. I'm not doing any staff training. I'm not doing any of those other things. I'm only reserving that time for patient care. And, we closed an extra day and we doubled the volume of our practice is because it's not the fact that I needed more time to see more people, is I needed to use the time that I had more effectively. Right. It's the same way with your finances. I mean, I guess we can continue to draw this parallel, but if I put $100 in a shoebox, it's going to sit there and not do anything. If I put $100 into a high yield savings account, that's going to work better for me, right? It's a more efficient use of that energy, right? It's higher leverage opportunities. So anyway, Zach, I want to kind of shifting gears. What are some good indicators for you that you need to take things off of your time audit and give them to someone else?
That is a great question. I think one of the biggest ones was like new patient phone calls, right? So that was something that like I wanted to do in the beginning and like had a lot of kind of pride around and ego around. And I realized once we started getting more leads that I couldn't get them fast enough. And so off leveling those and then also networking. So that's a big one is training staff on the proper way to network or the way that I network to not necessarily collect business cards or just be there, be like a person in a room, but to really make relationships with one or two people that then, either tell their friends or family about us or they, come in to see us. And so that's been a big thing because, and I've told my team like a big goal of mine is on Tuesdays not to come down to Colleyville, even if we live here. So like not to come into the office. And a big reason I'm down here on Tuesdays is because of a networking group that meets locally. And so a goal of mine is to have staff, future chiropractors, uh, which we may or may not be looking to onboard a future chiropractor sometime in 2025.
Wink, wink.
Subtle plug there. But yeah, starting to train in that sense so that I'm not really like not the key person. Like if I'm the one networking, if I'm the one doing new patient phone calls, adjusting scans, all of that stuff, like then I'm just creating a really big job for myself. And that was a big revelation coming out of Cairo WealthCon.
Yep. Key man risk.
And I think too, scans is another big one, or whatever you're doing in your office from like a objective standpoint. If you're the one always doing that, then you know that there's no reason a CA can't be doing that for you.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest indicator for me is when I'm doing something and like in my selfness, in my soul, I feel like, man, I wish I was doing something else. That's
That's
usually
a
an
great one too.
indicate Yeah, that's usually like an indicator that like I am not using my energy the most efficiently. That's different than being like this is hard and I'm challenged, right? That's way different. Like for me, like answering phone calls for new patients, I love answering them. At the same time, somebody else could have been doing them, and
Right.
it's not the
Right.
best use of my time. It's not that I don't want to do them, it's not the best use of my time, right? That's different than me being like, I am trying to write a marketing campaign
Hmm.
and I'm really struggling with this because I didn't go to school for marketing. Like, right? But what I do is I'm like, okay, first I need to go learn about these things. I need to spend more time with these things so then I can put some more effort toward them. But at the same time, that's why I hired Jeremy to be my fractional marketing
CMO.
officer
Yeah.
because I didn't go to school for that. And the time that it would take me to learn how to build a campaign would cost me more than it cost me to hire Jeremy per month. Right. That's the biggest thing. Like a lot of times it's showing you what's your priority, right? And like if you could either spend the time, this is called opportunity cost. Jared's last podcast was just on this that I listened to this morning. Is like, yeah, I can make this marketing campaign, and it might take me 4 hours to make the marketing campaign, and in those same 4 hours, I could have done, I don't know, 30 adjustments and made 4 grand or whatever you charge, or I can spend this 4 hours doing this marketing campaign and make $0. And so if I hire Jeremy for $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month, right, he can do that in 15 minutes.
Hmm.
And then that marketing campaign can already start working for me. Right. And so that's
Nice.
just showing like, what's your priority and when you're trading your time for money. At first, I have all kind of time and I don't have any money. And so then I go and I learn these smaller skills where I can kind of get by just enough to be dangerous. And then, okay, now I know enough to be dangerous. So then I can go in these conversations with people like Jeremy or people like this and not make naive or ignorant decisions. I have a little bit of experience, but I know that somebody's better.
Yeah. And I think too, being realistic with yourself. Like I know you said like, oh, I could spend 4 hours on a marketing campaign. In all actuality, I would assume for most chiropractors that might take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to really refine it. And then we have the perfectionist in us, how to implement it, and so you're just missing out on time. Not you're it's not just 4 hours. It's a couple weeks, and then you're missing out on all that lead generation. In 2 weeks, that campaign could have already been up off the ground in a couple hours with a professional help.
Yeah. So Zach, now that like since you just said like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna redo my schedule, and this is something that's coming up for me too. What are the top 3 things personally and professionally that you think are musts that have to go on your time calendar, like your time budget sheet?
I mean, personal time with Morgan, time with God. So I do like a 10-minute devotional every morning. Some Christians might be like, it has to be an hour. For me, it's 10 minutes. That's, time with Morgan. So weekly date night. I really like having dinner with her each and every night. So that's something I don't like to miss out on. And then another personal is, I mean, working out, I think is not obvious, but obvious. Like I'm a better person if I get 45 minutes to an hour of movement in, even if it's just like light weights or walking on a treadmill. That's something I'm learning. I can work out 6 days a week and it's not a huge tax on my body. So those would be the 3 personal. And then professional, CEO day. So one thing I'm learning is I like to get to the gym by like 6:30 in the morning. We don't record this podcast until 10. And so I can get a lot of deep work done in an hour and a half, 2 hours before we record, whether that's emails, marketing campaigns, looking at systems of the practice and things of that nature. So that's a big one, is those 2 hours. And then the 2 hours in the afternoon when I get home. So from like 3 to 5, that's when I like to have meetings. I've started seeing a somatic therapist, which I think is important. That's every other week for an hour. And then I think a third one professionally is having a meeting at least once a week with another provider or business owner or business in the community, at least once a week.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, those are really
For
good.
you.
For me personally, well, I mean, we said date night, so we schedule a
Mhm.
date night. I schedule my reading time. I schedule my workout. So instead of giving those same ones, other ones that I prioritize, we put church on there. We put church on the schedule. We put church in our family calendar.
You're better than
It's okay. You put your
me.
reading and stuff on there. We also put on personally, I put my bedtime on there, like time that I try to get to bed. That was like a really like I'm like super ADHD, so like I'll just like stay up and especially like at night, like I really like when it's just like really silent in the house, like no lights are on, nothing is moving around, and that's where I like really think the best. And so I would just like sit up like till like 11:30 or something like that, like doodad, like doing whatever, like
Yeah.
I would get on the laptop and like, I mean, that's how I found our house. Like, I'd like be researching houses, or like that's how I found the office, like researching office stuff, or like I'll just go like get really into like deep work, like to dude till like 11:30, 12:30 at night. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not sleeping. Like I need to sleep more. So try to put my bedtime on there. It likes to hold me accountable to that. And then now the dog knows to like come and tell me it's time to go to bed. She'll like come and bark at me. So yeah, bedtime, and then I put time like to I was like notoriously late all the time, so I like actually put like my driving time on there, like leave for the office,
Mm,
drive to work, drive home, because I was like notoriously late all the time. I would be like, okay, like work starts at 9, I'm leaving at 8:58, like so I was like putting more like, okay, I need to leave at this time, like this is my time to leave. So I do that, and then professionally same thing, I do CEO days. I put my networking on there. I put my team meeting
mm.
on
Yep.
there. I put my financial review on there. So I do all of our financial review in the 30 minutes to like an hour-ish before
Mm,
I get on here to record. And so that's where I'm like picking up emails, like clearing my inbox and everything. And then I work with my bookkeeper to kind of like define like some those miscellaneous financials, upload bank statements, all of those kind of things. And so she can go and finish out and do all the work. So I do that, clean up all of our financials.
nice.
And then what else do I put on there professionally? I put our doctor shift on there. Like that's a big one. And I put also Steps mastermind call just because like that's a priority to me to get on. And
Mm,
so I try not to schedule anything in that hour so I can get on there because I always leave with something good to come away from that.
yeah. That's definitely something I need to prioritize, are those
Prioritize,
calls.
right? Yep. So that's what I do there. Another one that like while we were doing 75 hard, this was like super, super key for us while we were doing 75 hard is to like really block it out. Workout number one, workout number two, reading and all those things. And when I really said like, okay, I'm going to read for these 15 minutes or something, dude, I was crushing books.
Mm,
And but then the next thing is really just like implementing that. So then having that time in your schedule built out to say, okay, I learned this in the book, and how can I get into a deep work focus to go out and actually be productive? That's the biggest thing, especially when you're starting up. There's so many things that you can sit there and do, and like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. I was so unproductive. I would literally like be working on something in the office and then be like, the plant's kind of crooked. I should get up and go and do that. And then I'm like
yeah.
randomly tidying up in the office, like by
Yeah.
myself. There's nobody in there.
I think it's a really good point is knowing where to do your deep work. Like whether, like I know for some people at home, like they'll be like, oh, I'm going to do this at home. And then like, oh, I could vacuum, I could maybe get some
Mhm.
laundry done. And I was like, no, that's interrupting. And same thing at the office. Like you might hear the phone ring, someone might walk in. So knowing when and where to do your deep work, I think is vital.
Yeah, I mean, at the office, I only do Dr. Spencer stuff. So I think that's another. Jared was just talking about it, like writing out. He calls it like building Superman. And so what you do is you basically just write like Zach, like this is Zach Thompson, and you write down all of the attributes and all the characteristics that your ideal self has.
Yeah.
right? And so then that'll just show you, hey, this is where my value's at. These are the things that I want to do as my ideal self. And then, you know, if Zach isn't the one doing the networking, right, then Zach needs to try to delegate that as fast as possible.
Mhm.
You know, if your ideal self is not doing the finances, then you need to hire a bookkeeper, right? And the opportunity cost is saying like, yeah, man, like, I really could save this extra 100, 200, 300, $500 a month,
Mhm.
right? But what's the cost of keeping yourself away from your ideal self, right? What's the opportunity cost of you delaying getting to the highest version of yourself? And that's the trade-off, right? You have to say, how much am I willing to spend to get closer to my ideal self? And that's why we go to all these events and seminars and masterminds and all of those kind of things, because I'm willing to spend to get closer to my ideal self faster.
I think that's really good. Really good. I think we can dive into like ideal self. I would love to next Dolo cast, which I don't know when our next Dolo cast will be, but talk about like ZT and Spencer 2.0. I know that's something we've both been working pretty deep on.
For sure. You got any closing thoughts?
No.
Sweet. All right,
You?
guys. Thanks so much for listening to the What Now podcast. Be on the lookout for our next episode. I've been doing a pretty good job of posting these pretty quickly, but we're going to start putting out some more content around the podcast. Big things to come for your boys. Peace.
Always. Peace.